So today I'm going to actually begin with Shama because it is important. The Shama and Dama both go together. Which one comes first? We cannot really tell. They actually happen at the same time. So he says here, Shamaha kaha mano nigraha. So it's very important value actually. It takes time to assimilate, takes time also to practice. It is a practicable value. Practicable in your life as well. Bringing it in day-to-day life is where your training is going to happen. This is the mastery over unhealthy patterns of thinking in your mind. This is the qualification where we grow from reaction to action in our life. So Shamaha is actually processing our reactions in life. First of all, it is also understanding what is behind the reaction in life, and also after the reaction, if the reaction takes place, to process that reaction. So it is moving from mechanical thinking, impulsive thinking, mechanical action, impulsive action in life to deliberate thought, deliberate action. Shamaha actually means tranquility or peace of mind. A person with Shamaha will have a mind which is free from stress and strain. So it is the best value to practice for stress management. How do we begin with this value then? We learn not to internalize everything. We internalize so many things in our life. It is very subjective, our life. Even if suppose somebody doesn't call for some time. What is the feeling? What have I done? Immediately, the subjectivity will come. What have I done? What have I done? Why is that person not calling me? Why is there so much gap? Have I done something to upset them, hurt them? That is, again, subjectively taking the situation. That is internalizing the situation. Why cannot the mind not see that that person may have other things in their mind? They may have other problems they have to deal with. People are busy with so many things in their lives. They don't have time to think just of you. But that is what our mind says, that everybody's mind is focused on me. So if people's behavior is in some other way, which doesn't match what I expect, again, I think I have done something wrong. It comes down to me. And that is called Shama. That is called subjectivity. Too much subjectivity will always result in emotional pain. That's a mantra. If you're too subjective and you cannot see the whole picture, the consequence will be emotional pain. So the solution is very, very simple. You have to learn to see situations from thousands of angles. There could be so many different reasons why people don't get in touch. So many different reasons. That is what you have to assimilate and not internalize, always leading to I. So the mind, Shamu, the Shamaha, very beautiful qualification, means it comes from the Sanskrit root Shamu Upashamane, which means to become calm, to become quiet. And this mind will definitely not become quiet by itself. In fact, if you leave the mind, it's going to become even more noisy. You may have found when you leave your mind, not doing anything, it becomes even more noisy. So that means I have to make an effort in my mind to quieten my mind. It is not letting my mind, which makes my life actually become a burden for me. A light mind is instrumental to achieve any goal in life. We're not even talking about spiritual goal. Any goal you want in your career, in anything, with your family, if you have a light mind, you can achieve those goals. It's an instrument to achieve your goals. But Arjuna also had the same problem in the Bhagavad Gita. It is not so easy to quieten the mind. He says in a very famous verse, I've said this before, but it's important to remember that even Arjuna suffered from this problem. So it is not restricted to one or two people in humanity. It is the whole of mankind that suffers from this problem. He said, Chanchalam himanah Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayorivasu dushkaram. This mind is so restless. Oh, Krishna, it is so turbulent. It is so strong. It is so obstinate. It appears to me more difficult to control than the wind itself. I mean, Arjuna says this, how do we control the wind? I cannot control the mind, basically, he's saying. But Bhagavan, he's very compassionate. He knows the mind is not easy to manage. He is the one who has given the mind after all, right? We didn't ask for a mind. He has given this mind, then he's asking us to manage it. Of course, he knows whole of humanity grapples with mental issues. No, Shastra doesn't Shastra doesn't envisage a normal person, normal personality. That you'll be happy to know. Everybody is abnormal according to the scriptures. Until you recognize the truth of yourself, you're abnormal. So there is no normal and abnormal where it comes to thinking as well. Everybody is abnormal because everybody is ignorant. So he acknowledges to Arjuna, but he also says, nothing is impossible. He acknowledges that it is dushkaram, it is difficult to manage, but he gives two techniques to all of us to manage our minds. What does he say? Asamshayam mahabaho mano durnigraham chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagena cha grihyate. Oh, Arjuna, what you say is correct. Yes, the mind is indeed very difficult to restrain, but by practice, by detachment, by objectivity, you can manage it. By continuous practice, by continuous objectivity, you can manage your mind, your ways of thinking. So we have to see, before we start managing our mind, what do we have to see? We have to see the value again and again of having a healthy mind without projections and problems. This is where that fundamental recognition has to come. What is that? The problem is me, the solution is me. Even for that thought to cross your mind, it is very, very difficult because we always point outside for problems. The habit is what? The other person is the problem, not me. The situation is the problem, not me. So for one to recognize the problem is me, the solution is me, it is a big, big step towards correcting your mind, big step towards managing your mind. And a healthy mind, you have to see, is needed for Vedanta pursuit. It's needed for any pursuit, but especially for Vedanta pursuit, for the assimilation and for the abidance in the self-knowledge and the knowledge of the self. A healthy mind becomes a necessity. That is why Vedanta addresses the mind first. Shamaha, very important qualification, because self-knowledge should become a blessing for you in your life. However many times you hear Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, and we talk about consciousness, all of that, if it doesn't bless you by becoming a reality in your life, then you have to deal with certain issues of the mind as well. Mere academic knowledge of the Shastra will not help you in your life. It has to translate into actions. You have to bring it into everything that you do, everything you say, everything you think. And it becomes a natural consequence of seeing the value again and again. Because the knowledge is here so that it occurs to you at your time of need. For example, you know what dharma and adharma is. Suppose we all know what dharma is, the right thing. We all know what is not the right thing to do. But if the desires become so strong, that knowledge does not bless me. The knowledge of right and wrong doesn't bless me because my desire outweighs that knowledge. For instance, I know it is wrong to take money from my friend deceitfully or duplicitously. I know it is wrong to be deceitful towards my friend. But my need, my desire for the house I want to build is so much stronger, then my intellect, my conscience is ignored. So again, we have to see the value of what is the problem? What is the problem? If you say, I got the house anyway, I duped my friend getting that money from him to get my house built. What is the problem? I got my desire fulfilled. The problem is, Shastra says, automatically you create an inner split in you. It will definitely manifest at some time or other in your life. You cannot avoid it. In that moment where your desire is fulfilled and you build the house of your dreams, but if you have duped somebody to get that money to build the house, what happens? That is going to come up sometime in your future because it is a law. You have created a split between you. The knower knows I did the wrong thing, but the doer does the wrong thing anyway. How will that be suppressed for long? No, it is going to come up. And why is it important? Because this is the basis for unhealthy mind. This is the basis for creating disturbances of mind. Arjuna also asks, what is an unhealthy mind? He asks Bhagavan. And he says, why a person is pushed, if you remember, to commit wrong action, even unwillingly. Atakkena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anichanapi varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. Why unwillingly even a person is pushed to commit a wrong action by some force. Duryodhana, we saw in the Mahabharata also, he recognized his problem. He said, Janami dharmancha, nacha me pravrittihi. I cannot do dharma, even though I know what dharma is. Janami adharmancha, nacha me nivrittihi. I know what is wrong, but I cannot prevent myself from doing it. And he says, why? Kenapi devena hridistitena yatha niyoktasmi tata karomi. There is some kind of, something is sitting in my heart and it's driving me to this wrong action. He says that. He says there's something. So what is that thing? We know it is kama and krodha. Bhagavan says very clearly in the Bhagavad Gita, helplessness in action comes when we are given to certain emotions in the mind. A heavy mind prevents somebody from constructive activity in life. And it also, it contributes towards destructive activity, actually. So acting out of negative emotions like anger, hatred, greed, jealousy are all expressions. We have to understand they're expressions of underlying pain in me. If I act out of negative emotions, it will be a reaction. It will not be proper action. Because what happens when I act out of emotion, my free will is inoperative in reactions. There is no deliberation in reaction. There is only impulse and mechanicality in reaction. And why is this important to understand? Because it is dangerous. This is dangerous in our life. We know that. It can ruin our lives. It can ruin relationships, spoil relationships. It can lose jobs. It can destroy everything, actually, if we live our lives in a reactive way all the time. So shamaha is becoming deliberate in my thoughts. Shamaha, as soon as I'm deliberate in my thoughts, then I will become deliberate in my actions as well. So shamaha means to manage the impulses stemming from our two enemies. This is why we're propelled to action. My Duryodhana had, compromised dharma. What are the two enemies? We know this. In fact, we say, I keep saying there are two friends because they follow us everywhere. But Bhagavan says enemies, raga and dvesha. These are the main disturbances of the mind. The binding likes in the mind, binding dislikes in the mind, they are the disturbances of the mind. But again, we should not lose hope. Bhagavan says this raga dvesha can be managed. Tayor navashamagachet, tau hyasya paripantino. He says, don't come under their sway. Recognize that in every object, there's a potential to invoke binding like or dislike in you. Any object, person, or situation can become an object of love for you or an object of aversion. But this is where we get the trap. Anything that becomes object of love or aversion, we're headed for trouble already. So shamaha is a practice of not letting objects, people, and situations take me for a ride in life. We should not allow anything to take me for a ride in life. Understand the problem of how the mind gets bound. Then you will discover the situation. There are three problems, actually, three main obstacles on the spiritual path, especially, which are wrong ways of thinking, erroneous notions. This is where we practice shamaha also in our spiritual path as well. These are three diseases that afflict the mind and they hinder our spiritual development. The first is mala. Mala means mental impurities. So raga dvesha is included here. This is mainly due to raga dvesha, these mental impurities. It is the accumulated dirt of this life and of previous lives. We keep accumulating some dirt, like wrong imprint of wrong thinking carried in our memory. It is already there, sitting there, and this memory is carried life after life. This is what we call vasanas. These vasanas, that they follow us life after life, which is imprint of wrong thinking, and we perpetuate that wrong thinking life after life, and unfortunately that wrong thinking becomes our reality. So I suffer with my own mind. I don't suffer with what is really happening in life. It is my own mind, my wrong thinking that makes me suffer. So this is, these impurities are as we know, the shadaris, the six enemies of man: kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, which are, the desire, intense desire, anger, greed, moha, illusion, mada, pride, matsarya, jealousy. These are all mental impurities. And Shastra very clearly says, how do you remove these? This is where Karma Yoga comes into the picture. Karma Yoga is the lifestyle to remove mental impurities. So this is mala removal is on the level of action. Mala removal, you have to act out in your life. And also helping along with your activities in life is satsangam, very important. If you have a support system of people who think the same way, very good thinking people, mantra and prayer, Ishvara's grace, of course, these invoke Ishvara's grace, they will help you manage the impurities of the mind. But removing this mala in your mind requires constant, continuous, alert living, persistent practice, like Bhagavan says, abhyasa. Everything is practice. Even if you remember as a child, when you learn to ride a bike, it is not immediate. Very few people can immediately ride the bike. It is a process. You practice everything. Learning to drive, practice. Practice makes perfect. So in the same way, with these qualifications, practice is the key. Bhagavan says very clearly, it is practice. For raw gold to be converted into pure gold, it has to be melted on fire repeatedly to remove the impurities. So you are actually putting yourself through test of fire. You are the raw gold. There is gold there. You are putting yourself in that fire daily. It has to be melted on fire repeatedly. So that practice, which is very, very painful sometimes, because it is much easier to live normally like everybody else without change. It is very easy. That's how most people live. The 99% of the Jagat live in that way. Very mechanically, automatically. They just live their lives very simply. Here, Vedanta is asking you to think about your life, think about your thoughts, think about your actions, because for real success in your life, this mala has to go, and it can only be eliminated by practice over a period of time. Sometimes that practice could be lifelong, but you have to be prepared for it, because even if it's lifelong, next janma you will get the chance to finish it off. So we don't think about one lifetime. That's another thing. Our vision is also future life. If I don't make it in this life, you should be very, very confident. Bhagavan has promised you will pick up the thread in a future life. So people worry, all the practices I did in this life, and look at me, you're just about to, conk off, and you're right on your deathbed. And you think, I did all this shama, dhamma, nothing happened. Nothing happened in my life. Nothing happened to me. Nothing has changed. I'm still the same reactive person. I've been practicing. And you're about to breathe your last. Then Bhagavan says, no, it's okay. Even if you haven't achieved in this life, all the practice, all that sadhana you've done in this life is going to follow you into your next life. It is not wasted. So 100% guarantee, anything you do in this life, don't give up, because it is not wasted. You're going to carry it on with you. So mala is the first thing that we have to manage. The second thing, which is probably very, very difficult, everything is difficult, vikshepa. Vikshepa are the internal mental distractions and disturbances in the mind. So these are the turbulent waves of thoughts that arise and fall constantly in the mind. And this is what creates the constant wavering of the mind, the disturbance and waywardness of the mind. So this is where spiritual practices become key. Vikshepa is removed, this projective part of yourself, constant distraction. Some people are like that. They're not able to focus on one task. They do one thing and suddenly they leave it and do something else. They don't do anything properly. That is because of vikshepa. Over vikshepa, it drags your mind here and there. You're not able to focus on one thing. And this is removed very clearly, our scriptures say, through upasana, meditation, pranayama. Breath is very much controlled to the mind, connected to the mind. Breathing practices can also help manage your thinking as well, and japa. So japa, upasana, meditation, pranayama, all of these are to control that vikshepa. The third obstacle in our spiritual path with the mind is, again, this is something that only knowledge can remove, that is avarana. Avarana means ignorance, that which hides our true nature. So it is only through practicing shama in the first two that avarana can go. Shama is practice of the first two, removing mala. I practice living a life of shama. I inculcate that quality in me. I practice also removing vikshepa, again, shamaha, bringing shamaha into my life. At the same time, to remove avarana shakti, I do what? I study shastra, knowledge, self-knowledge as opposed to self-ignorance. So the study of the shastra removes the ignorance. Avaranas removed by jnanam, the opposite. Vedanta literature, all of this removes avarana. So shamaha, we've understood now the problem with the mind. Now we'll see slowly what the solution is that Shastra has given. But first we have to see that shama is only possible. It can only come when we've let go of things that bind us. And mainly this binding things is past.